So, ladies and gentlemen, this evening we're taking a throwback look at my screenshots column on one of the best science fiction movies of all time. Actually, the AFI named it in their top 10. Now, for a lot of the youngsters out there under the age of 40, probably don't remember the big buzz when Forbidden Planet, an MGM production, came out in 1956. Now, directed by Fred Wilcox and produced by Nicholas Nayfack, it had a great cast, including Walter Pidgeon, the beautiful Anne Francis, the Canadian superstar Leslie Nielsen, and a full-color production shot in Eastman Color and CinemaScope. It's sort of a lead into what we can call contemporary science fiction cinema. The plot of the movie is very direct, and some people compare it to William Shakespeare's The Tempest, as the plot contains certain parallels to the play. Now, Forbidden Planet stands out not because of the acting, not because of the great production, the beautiful color. It pioneered numerous aspects of science fiction cinema. Now, it was the first science fiction film to depict people from the planet Earth traveling on a faster-than-light starship of their own creation, which was never really done before. Obviously the Star Trek style universe kind of started with this. It was also the first science fiction movie to be set entirely on another planet in space, far away from Earth. And of course, the true star of the movie, Robby the Robot character, he was one of the first film robots that were just more than something mechanical like a tin can just struggling around. Robby had a very distinct personality and played a very strong character in the movie. It used actually also a entirely electronic musical score, courtesy of the Barron family, and its great production values led to a visual effects nomination at the Academy Awards in that year. Now, it's also been entered in the Library of Congress National Film Registry, which makes it, a movie that will never go away. So the base plot, not to give away too much, we're in the 23rd century. The starship C-57D reaches Altair 4 to find out what happened to an Earth expedition that was sent there 2 decades before. Now, Dr. Edward Mobius, one of the scientists on the expedition, warns the relief ship not to land, saying he can't guarantee their safety, but the commander, John J. Adams, refuses, and all the plot really goes ahead from there. Robby the Robot basically leads the plot as it goes along. There's very many machinations with the main characters and the strong cast, especially Walter Pidgeon, Leslie Nielsen, Richard Anderson, who I've met actually at Framingham Megafest. Richard said it was one of his favorite movies to work on. Earl Holliman's in it, James Best, a great extended cast. Now, original plot of Forbidden Planet was conceived early in 1952. Actually, it was supposed to be called something called Fatal Planet. Now, the later screenplay draft by Cyril Hume, one of the great writers of his era, renamed the film Forbidden Planet. Some people believe that using Fatal Planet would cut their box office appeal. Now, according to some sources, the original was supposed to be in the year 1976 on the planet Mercury, but that basic plot was kind of thrown out and the more expanded plot was put together. What was great too about Forbidden Planet, it was constructed, the sets were constructed on one of the big MGM sound stages in Culver City. Now, it was shot actually like Star Trek and other similar shows, all indoors, which gave it kind of that claustrophobic look, and the matte paintings for this was beautiful. Now, what was great to the starship, which was another major character in there, they did a full-size mock-up of it with about 3/4 size, which 51 meters. That's a pretty big starship in any sense. Now, the ship was supported by a kind of a cyclorama and featured a desert landscape of Altair in the background, and it took pretty well all the available space for it. And this is very weird. It was only shot in less than 5 weeks, and the quality in this movie to have a crew and cast to work only 5 weeks is quite amazing. But the big cost with the movie, of course, was the Robby the Robot. And according to figures released by MGM, it cost at the time an astounding $125,000 to put together. And at the time, it was almost 10% of the movie's budget, which would compare probably, I don't know, to $1.3 million in 2019 cash. Now, there was also some great animated sequences in Forbidden Planet, especially the attack of the one of the key villains of the piece. Not going to give it too much away, but it were created by the tremendous talent of veteran animator Joshua Mador, who was lent out by Walt Disney to MGM for the movie. Now, all this together, all the creation, the creators, all the actors, the cast and stuff like that, made it probably one of the, I don't know, the groundbreaking efforts of the 1950s. Really, it changed the way that science fiction was worked on, because people would say from then on, we need something to the quality of Forbidden Planet, and that's what they gave down the road. And because it was a kind of an ensemble cast event, very similar science fiction movies later on tried that ensemble approach, and it influenced Lost in Space, Star Trek, The Time Machine, all these great movies to come. Now, at the box office, it was a medium hit. Initially earned about 1.6 million in the U.S. and Canada, and about 1.25 million worldwide. And for the time, it was a pretty good profit. He made $210,000, which is comparable maybe to 5 or 10 million now. Now, it was re-released many times through the years, especially in 1972, when MGM was doing a revival of its library, and it was part of the kiddie feature style that released in 72. I only saw Forbidden Planet actually first time on black and white TV, and I really didn't get into it, but on Turner Classic Movies it shows up quite a number of times. Now, the best release for a lot of people Forbidden Planet is the collector's edition that came out in 2006, and came in a beautiful red metal box, and used the original film poster as a wraparound cover. And the deluxe package had the high HD DVD format, and it's Robby the Robot actually was the biggest draw of the movie. He later on went to appear in several episodes of Twilight Zone. He was a key character on Lost in Space. Probably the best thing about Lost in Space, because it's a children's show, needs something stronger than what the rest of the cast of Lost in Space offered. Robby was the big draw. Now, as the years have gone along, there's been a Forbidden Planet kind of tributes over the years. Not only repetition of the music score, there's basically been stage plays of Forbidden Planet, elements of Doctor Who, and under the Planet of Evil serial was based on Forbidden Planet. Actually, Gene Roddenberry said, Forbidden Planet was one of his initial inspirations for Star Trek. Now, for me, Anne Francis, tremendous actress, and let me tell you, she has a kind of the first space heroine, if that makes any sense. She basically went on to the great work in Twilight Zone in different roles, but she was considered one of the original superstars of science fiction from a female standpoint. Now, there's been stage musicals of it. There's been games, and actually our favorite Game of Thrones writer, George R.R. Martin, said that basically was his favorite science fiction film. So it's basically been very influential on all levels. Now, there was a possibility of a remake by New Line Cinema a number of years ago, but that fell through. I guess James Cameron was in the development process, didn't really come about. Now, there's still talk about a possible remake or shot-by-shot version, but right now as it stands, the movie lives on in itself. Basically, there's different clubs across the world that look back to Forbidden Planet, and the tropes there really live on. Now, as we go along into 2019, we're into award season, so you do worse than decide not to see some of the Oscar bait movies this year and go back to a real groundbreaking film, Forbidden Planet. And as we like to say in the science fiction business, look up to the stars. There's always something out there. Hopes this finds you well on this January night. Bye.